Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer.
Who is he?
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer.
And who is he?
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer.
And what he do?
And it's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I am Bruce Rivers, coming to you with my pearl-handled pistol cufflinks with our content genius behind the camera, Michael Howard Rivers. Today we're going to react to Brian Taylor, who is being sentenced in Michigan for some crimes. And we're going to talk a little bit about sentencing today, what sentencing is and what it's like to give an argument in sentencing. But before we get to that, this is brought to you by eSign.com. eSign.com, a very effective way to remotely do business. Let's say you're on your private jet with Michael Rivers because he's the content YouTuber genius, and you're just jet setting all around the world, and you need to sign a deal with eSign. Got to re-sign with eSign. So what do? We can't be bothered with having to go into their office, so we e-sign it. So you e-sign or no one signs. Well, we download the app, and you get 3 free signatures a month. And it's an effective way to remotely do business. You email the document over, you e-sign it. Now we've got it sealed, and it's done. I use it all the time in my practice when somebody can't make it into the office, or just to make it more convenient. You email a retainer agreement or a power of attorney or any kind of document that needs a signature. eSign.com, a very effective and quick way to remotely do business. Now, Brian Taylor was charged with, he was arrested and police found him struggling with another man holding a gun to his abdomen in Michigan. At the time of his arrest, he had multiple felony warrants. So he pled guilty, and he was on parole at the time. So generally speaking, if you're on parole, you're going to go back to prison no matter what if you get another offense. There's really 2 phases to the criminal process. There's the guilt phase that can be taken care of either through a trial or a plea. But then there's the sentencing phase. And people say, well, if he's guilty, why do you need a lawyer? Well, because the sentencing phase can be just as impactful and just as stressful as the trial phase. And unless you have a deal cut, where you have a guaranteed sentence, the prosecutor and you agree, and the judge agrees, okay, you're going to get 60 months, we'll see you later. If you have a serious case, you don't know what you're going to get. And so you put your best foot out there, and sometimes you win, and sometimes you don't. And it's all based upon, and you don't know what you're going to get. And a lot of times, a judge will sit there and have like a long speech. And you can't tell sometimes early on how the judge is going to rule. And so you're sitting there on pins and needles, not knowing if your client's either going to go to prison or what's going to happen with your client. He's going to present his argument in song. And really what his argument is, the defendant has the last say when it comes time for sentencing. And it's called allocution. It's where you tell the judge whatever you want to tell the judge about you before the judge imposes sentence. So let's see what happens with Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, that's how I wrote a song. Hello there, Your Honor, I want to say I'm sorry.
Now, if my client was doing this, it would be awfully hard to keep a straight face. Presenting your argument in song is a little crazy.
For the things I've done, and I try and be stronger in this life.
And you look at his lawyer off to his right, your left. He's trying to make himself look like he's busy, and he's probably doing that so he doesn't bust out laughing.
But I want you to know that door I closed.
Look at him. He's not even looking at the judge. He's not looking at anybody. His head, and look at this guy over here on the right head. His head's down. Everybody's just laughing their ass off because it's crazy. And what's going through the judge's head, I don't quite know, because you're dealing with somebody who's not, and I understand why this guy's doing this. He's doing this to be creative. He's doing this to show that he's genuinely sorry for what happened. But he's got so much shit going on, and this isn't his first rodeo.
In Your Honor, I'm sorry, 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 sorry. To my mother, I'm sorry, sorry,
He is trying so fucking hard not to laugh.
sorry, sorry. To the victim, I'm sorry, 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 sorry.
And I think that was one more sorry for the victim.
Yes, Your Honor, I'm sorry, 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 sorry. Oh. Thank you, Your Honor.
It takes some balls to get up there and in front of a packed courtroom to sing your apology to the court. That is one of the things that the court looks at is acceptance of responsibility, remorse, that kind of thing. You can say you're sorry all day long, but when you have violent gun cases, you know, the courts are very unsympathetic to a defendant who sticks their gun in the belly of somebody and robs them. I mean, especially when you've got outstanding warrants and you're out on parole. So it's like, if you didn't understand this, then when are you ever going to understand it? He was looking to try to get a sentence of 36 months. The judge sentenced him to 17 years. This is in Michigan. And that's what I'm telling you about, because you go in there, he is really hoping that the judge gives him 36 months. But because of his history, because of the parole status, and because of the violent nature of the crime, the judge winds up giving him 17 years. When you're out there on the street, when you go to a restaurant, when you hop in your car, when you do this or you do that or whatever, think about what you're doing. Think about, when you stick your gun inside of somebody and that didn't deserve it, and somebody that is an innocent person, was it worth it? I mean, was it worth that moment? It seems like there might be some mental health issues going on here too, because, I mean, look at the song that he just sang to the judge. So when a judge looks at sentencing, there are a whole host of factors. They look at how they sentenced things in the past. They want to avoid sentencing disparities. In other words, you don't want a black defendant getting a substantially higher sentence than a white defendant for the same crime. They look at the different types of sentences that are available. They look at the type of programming that might be necessary, that might be available or not available in prison. They look at the seriousness of the offense and the respect for the law. Most states have sentencing guidelines. The U.S. District Court has a set of sentencing guidelines that are advisory, and the court can use those guidelines to fashion a sentence. They are the first step in the analysis. And there's a statute, 18 U.S. Code 3553A, and it lists out all the different factors that a judge looks at. So you take into account the whole person. So the personal history and characteristics of the defendant is something that is really probably one of the most important things that a judge looks at. So when you have somebody like Mr. Taylor, who has a long history of recidivism, in other words, reoffending, that is probably the driving factor in his sentence, that and the nature of the offense. When you have, I can tell you this story. My son, Michael, used to be a federal law clerk at the Federal Defender's Office. And he had a case that was a very difficult case, but they asked for a departure in that case. So one of the things that he did was, you write up a sentencing memorandum, and he went back and looked at the judge's old speeches and used some of the words that the judge used in speeches in terms of what her priorities were, and dovetail that into a sentencing argument, and got a sentence that was about half of what the guidelines were. And it's really all about who the person is related to the offense that they committed. I've got one right now that's in federal court, and I'm trying to get probation for a guy who possessed a bunch of switches. And and I've got some really compelling reasons why he's different than the average defendant, and outside the heartland of the cases. That's what we're talking about. So this has just been our kind of look at sentencing and our look at Mr. Taylor and his melodic argument that he made for sentencing that did not work. So we'll see you next time here at Criminal Lawyer Reacts. Sign up for Patreon. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. Sign up or subscribe. And we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away.
23-hour lockdown, police is at my goal.